It's the Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
I think parents just need to be aware and just clock when our kids are coming to us and telling us that things are happening to them online.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
Well, every Wednesday I get to have this valuable conversation with somebody who knows a whole lot about stuff, more than me, to help us to make our families happier. And today, a conversation that just has to be had. I cannot tell you how passionate isn't the right word, but how seriously, how sober I am about a conversation like this. Kids in a recent report between 9 and 12, there's been a spike in kids between 9 and 12 sending nudes using phones and social media and computers, iPads, that sort of stuff, with most of them actually saying in surveys that they think it's normal. Let me just say that again. Kids 9 to 12 think that it's normal to send nudes. We've got a problem in our society at the moment when it comes to the way that our kids are using digital devices. And joining me for today's podcast is Commissioner Julie Inman Grant. Julie heads up the Australian eSafety Commission. It's a it's an independent body that the federal government has tasked to help us to keep people safe online, both children and adults. Julie is a mum to 3 kids herself, and is just we have many years of history and wonderful conversations, and I'm so delighted to be able to have her on the podcast today. Commissioner Julie Inman Grant, welcome to the Happy Families podcast.
Dr. Coulson and Justin, if I may, so
please.
happy to be here.
This is a really serious conversation, and as much as you and I enjoy talking about all kinds of things technology, this new report really, I don't want to make parents get scared. That's not the purpose of this conversation. It's actually to talk about what's going on and focus on solutions. Before we get to the report, can we just briefly talk about what the Australian eSafety Commission does and what you do as the commissioner? A lot of families won't even know that this branch of, is it a branch of the government? No, this independent body exists.
We're an independent statutory authority, so we're a regulatory agency, and we're the first and right now only regulatory agency in the world that solely looks after our citizens' online safety needs. So we approach things in 3 different ways. We are a regulator, but I often talk about the 3 Ps: prevention, protection, and proactive change. So in terms of prevention, if you go onto our website, esafety.gov.au, and you look at our research, everything is evidence-based. We're working with various groups, whether they're vulnerable, disadvantaged groups or young people themselves, with parents and others, to make sure that we're basically providing online safety education, information, and programs from cradle to grave. We know that 42% of 2-year-olds in Australia have access to a digital device. It's usually, an iPad for entertainment. But by the time they're 4 years old, it's up to 94%.
Julie, a couple of weeks ago, Safer Internet Day occurred, and you released a report that had a whole lot of statistics around what parents are doing. Parents aren't seeking information until their children are in trouble online. And you're trying to make this a proactive thing. And I find the same thing, right? I show up at schools to talk about keeping kids safe online, talk about tweens, teens and screens. And the audiences are reasonably sized, but they're not huge. But the people who are in the audience are usually the ones who are saying, we need help because something's happened. So what did you discover in your Safer Internet Day report?
Well, there was actually some good news and some bad news. So one of the great things about having an eSafety Commission and the fact that we've been doing both parent studies and youth studies over the past 7 years is we're actually able to establish a baseline and see where we've actually made some impact. So, and one of the first campaigns we did nationwide was around the Start the Chat campaign. It was really all about parents talking to their kids about what's happening online. It was about co-playing and co-viewing, and, to kind of demystify kids' technology use for them. And what we found was that because parents have started these conversations with kids are more likely to seek out help from their parents by almost a 15% increase from 2017. We've also been targeting young people directly and working with young people on co-design to make sure the messages are authentic. And we found that kids are being empowered to use what we call user empowerment tools on the social media platforms. They're blocking people, they're reporting, they're muting, they're using all these conversation controls. What we also also identified is with this research, we talked to both parents and their children about negative online experiences. And what we found that almost 60% of teens aged 14 to 17 had been exposed to what we call harmful content online, while only 40% of their parents were aware. Now, this was content like drug taking, suicidal ideation, incitement to self-harm, unhealthy eating, gory images, and violent sexual material. Basically, parents are more aware about cyberbullying and other kind of negative things that might be happening to their kids online, but kids aren't as readily talking to their parents about some of these more stigmatizing topics or things that could get them in trouble. But we also found that while nearly 70% of the kids who were treated in a hurtful or nasty way online were cyberbullied, or as what young people often say is that we were socially excluded, or there was drama or rumors, 70% of kids told their parents. But then when we asked their parents what experiences they thought their children had had, only about 51% of parents remember being aware of that issue. And what it sort of pointed out is that kids are living their lives online, and they don't make a distinction between their online and offline lives. So, drama and rumors and all of this online bullying can be very distressing to them. But I think as parents, we kind of compartmentalize and it may not have really registered with as many parents that this was causing our kids serious emotional and mental distress.
I think of that, just the whole idea of being present. When you say that, it's like, yeah, I'm listening, but I'm not listening. Because if we truly inhabited our child's world, we would actually, I think we'd be more likely to feel the loss that they've felt, that loss of trust, or the sense that something's happened to them that's significant and that they need help with. There's a psychological term called disenfranchised grief. And disenfranchised grief is basically, I'm grieving because something bad has happened to me and I'm struggling with it, but the experience that I'm having is ultimately unseen by the people around me that I needed to be seen by. And it sounds to me like you're kind of indicating that kind of an experience.
Absolutely. It does feel like a little bit of disenfranchisement. And I guess the question is, and you're the psychological specialist, but, does it just require parents stopping and saying, okay, well, how did this make you feel? And how can I help you?
Yeah.
So again, I think it's probably a very basic conversation, but I think parents just need to be aware and just clock when our kids are coming to us and telling us that things are happening to them online.
We could talk about this for days, but I think in the interest of time, and given that this is the podcast for the time poor parent who really just wants answers now, a couple of things to bring all of this together. Typically when we as parents are thinking about what's safe for our kids online, we're thinking about cyberbullying, we're thinking about making sure they don't see nudes. But because of this conversation you've thrown in, there's all of the violence, there's the breathtaking social awfulness that occurs that you wouldn't necessarily call bullying. It's just kids that are being awful to each other. There's you've talked about the suicidal ideation and the anorexia and all the kinds of sites that lead to self-harm. There's the grooming, there's the exclusion and so on. All of this is there. And from what I've picked up from your conversation, Julie, you're saying talk early, talk often, be present, teach them to block and mute and use whatever other community buttons are available to protect themselves. And remember that telling the kids that if something happens, you're going to take the phone off them is not going to work.
No, I think, and this is what this research from Safer Internet Day sort of surfaced up. We need to find the right balance, and every parent is going to have a different parenting style. But between letting our children be independent and have some freedom online and creating those right expectations. And of course, the way that we manage a young person's technology use, the younger they are, the more restrictive we need to be, but we need to teach them those good habits early. So some other things that parents can do, they can set parental controls. You can come to our eSafety guide at esafety.gov.au. We've got a list of the top games and apps and social media sites that kids are using, and it talks about how you can set their privacy settings or parental controls. Of course, there are a range of other parental controls that you can buy externally, or even what we call native controls like screen time that exist on the iPhones and the iPads that you can utilize. But have your kids use technology in open areas of the house so that you can look over their shoulder, see what they're doing. You can see their expressions. That goes for kids who are gaming. Now, you think about popular games like Fortnite. You've got 100 different people. You've got what we call a commingled environment, which may include some aggressive adults or foul-mouthed teenagers, along with your 12 or 13-year-old. You want to actually hear what's happening rather than being closed off. So you need to be present. You don't have to be there every moment, but just be aware of what they're doing. Be really careful about letting kids use, their devices in the privacy of their own bedrooms and bathrooms. I know in our household, of course, a lot of schoolwork does happen, but our child comes in and plugs in, charges her devices overnight in our bedroom so that, she has to come back in if she plans to not sleep and use the technology.
Does she ever call you commissioner as she does it?
She does not. She does not. She, I get the occasional teenage eye roll.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Mom. Yeah, like you really know what you're talking about, Mom.
That's right. It's not like you're the eSafety commissioner or anything. What would you know? I get the same thing with my kids.
Yeah, no, but it's important because to know how kids respond to different things and to know what kind of works, to also understand what parents are actually experiencing. And this is one of the challenges that we have, Justin, is in reaching enough parents. We tend to see the people that come to the webinars and the seminars are the parents that are already really engaged. It's the really busy, time-poor parents that we want to reach so that the iPad or the telephone doesn't become the digital babysitter because there are things that can go wrong, even if you have parental controls on. So we can't be there at every moment, but we can talk to our kids. We can help them build their digital resilience. We can help teach them critical reasoning skills. And I think that's the most important thing. Whether it's a scam, whether it's fake news, whether it's a friend using an imposter or a fake account, whether it's online grooming of children, these are all social engineering tactics. We need to teach our kids to question everything before they click a link, before they respond to someone who they may not know, and certainly before they go meet someone in person that they may have only met online.
Julie, we need to wrap this up. I know that you're preparing for another very important meeting in just a sec. If people want more information so that you can reach more families, help more people and deal with the significant challenges that the online world does present to our kids, where should they go and what can they find?
Well, our National Online Safety Hub is at eSafety.gov.au. We offer tons of free webinars for parents and for young people. So look those up. Check out our eSafety guide. And then we have a whole set of parent resources, including some great resources that you helped us develop, Justin, around how do you talk to your kids about online pornography under the age of 8, between the ages of 8 and 12 as tweens, and then hopefully you're not leaving it to the teenage years, but also, for teenagers. Again, I think the goal should be let's get ahead of this and let's sort of anticipate what our kids might be experiencing and have these conversations and make sure that we're part of our kids' online lives the way we are their everyday lives.
Yeah, such an important conversation. Commissioner Julie Inman Grant from the Australian eSafety Commission, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me.
The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. Craig Bruce is our executive producer. And if you'd like more info about making your family happier, we will link to everything that Julie's talked about in the show notes. And you can also visit happyfamilies.com.au.